Hello. Today we're going to continue the story of Jesus during Holy Week. Remember yesterday, Rachel shared about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane and how Judas betrayed him with a kiss. And then the temple guards came and took him away. They arrested him. Before I get started with today's story, I want you to think about a time when you may have made a promise that was hard to keep. When I thought about this question, I remembered that there have been many days after a church service when I will promise my children that I will only stay for 1 minute, but then I'll see one person and then another person that I need to talk to, and often that 1 minute becomes much longer than 1 minute. So I find that promise very difficult to keep sometimes. So listen to today's story and think about if you can identify with any of the characters in the story. I'm wondering if some of you may have had trouble keeping a promise to wash the dishes, make your bed, get along with your brother or sister. In today's story, the temple guards take Jesus away from the garden, and all of the disciples run away, except Peter. Peter follows behind at a distance, and he sees that the guards are taking Jesus to the high priest's house. And there's Peter following at a distance, and the crowd following Jesus inside the high priest's house. Peter is able to get inside the courtyard. And here is Peter, you can see him over on the side, warming his hands at a charcoal fire. And there was a woman there who recognized him. She said, "Aren't you one of those that was the follower of Jesus? I think I saw you with him." And Peter said, "Oh no, you're mistaken. That must have been somebody else." But he got up and he moved to a different part of the courtyard. Meanwhile, inside the house, the guards brought Jesus in front of the former high priest. And here you can see Jesus standing there, and this is the former high priest. And he began to question Jesus, and he asked him about things about his teachings. And Jesus said, "Well, I taught in public all week long. Why don't you ask one of the people who was there listening to me?" And one of the guards came up to Jesus and slapped him. And he said, "You need to show more respect to this man of God." And Jesus said, "Why do you hit someone who only speaks the truth?" Well, then they brought Jesus upstairs to a high balcony so that the current high priest, Caiaphas, could question him. And here is Jesus in front of Caiaphas. And they brought many witnesses forward to testify against Jesus, but none of them could agree. And so they brought even more witnesses, and things just got more confused. And finally, Caiaphas questioned Jesus directly. He said, "Tell me plainly, are you the Messiah?" And Jesus answered, "Yes, I am. And you will see the Son of Man at the right hand of the Mighty One." And Caiaphas was outraged, and he grabbed his cloak and he ripped it in two, and he said, "You've heard it from his own mouth. This man blasphemes. He is guilty." And everyone agreed, "Let's kill him." And they spit on Jesus and they beat him. Peter could see all this from the courtyard. And here's Peter down in the courtyard. And another man recognized Peter. He said, "I'm sure I saw you with the disciples of Jesus. Weren't you one of them?" And Peter said, "Oh no, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never met that man Jesus." And a little while later, a third person came to Peter and said, "I am certain. Your accent gives you away. You're a Galilean. You must have been one of them." And Peter said, he started cursing, and he swore. He said, "I've never met that man Jesus." And just then, the rooster crowed. And Jesus looked at Peter, and Peter remembered that Jesus had predicted that Peter would deny him 3 times before the rooster crowed. And Peter felt terrible, and he ran away all by himself and wept bitterly. In the morning, when the sun came up, the head priest had his guards take Jesus away to the Romans to be executed. And when Judas heard what had happened, he felt remorse, and he took his 30 pieces of silver, and he brought them back to the head priest, and he said, I have sinned. I have condemned an innocent man. And the head priest laughed. He said, that's not my problem. You deal with it. And Judas took the 30 pieces of silver, threw it at the head priest's feet, and he ran out of there. And that was the last time anyone saw Judas alive. And that's the end of the story today. Tomorrow, you'll get to hear about what happens when Jesus goes before the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate.